Thank you. The Honorable Minister for Education for the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, Ministers of State from African countries who are here present, our development partners, leaders of IDEA, Deputy Minister for Education, Dr. Clement Apak, I recognize you. Ladies and gentlemen, I join Honorable Haruna Idrisu to welcome all of you to Ghana, and I commend you, IDEA, for being Africa's premier high-level forum for dialogue, peer learning, exchange of knowledge, and impactful experiences in education. I'm certain that due to the richness of the stakeholders who have gathered here for the 2025 triennial hosted in Accra, will in substance and organization improve upon all the previous 3 held in Ouagadougou, Dakar, and Mauritius. I bring you warm greetings from the Honorable Minister for Finance, Dr. Kasil Atoforsen, Minister for Finance for the Republic of Ghana, on whose behalf I address this gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, despite our shared deep interest in education, my experience in and passion for education sector must have added to my minister's comfort in choosing me to be here today. I trained as a teacher, and so anytime I meet people who have passion for education, I say I have met people of my kind. Ladies and gentlemen, I therefore feel pleased that I have the opportunity to address this distinguished assembly under the theme, Reimagining Education Financing in Africa in the light of shifts in the global funding landscape. This theme is a clarion call to action, urging us to rethink our priorities, innovate with courage, and make bold choices to secure education for the future of our continent. I am most certain that the emergent strategies to finance education from today's engagement will profoundly influence the trajectory of our continent for generations to come. Distinguished guests, the history of socio-economic development of countries across the world shows that education is always a cornerstone. Nations and regions therefore continue to focus on improving access to and quality of education. Indeed, education has been the basis of some of the most important partnership frameworks between developing and advanced countries. And here I speak of the several international frameworks, including the World Declaration on Education for All initiative by UNESCO in 1990, as well as United Nations Millennium and Sustainable Development Goals, all of which demonstrate strong focus on improving education. Quite naturally, Africa has had its share of development support on the education front. According to the OECD, over $500 billion has been disbursed as aid to education through bilateral and multilateral agencies, with much of the disbursements to Africa. Despite the promises and the expenditure, the World Bank recently declared a learning crisis. Data shows that very large numbers of young people in Africa are not achieving minimum learning standards. The fact is, progress in closing the educational gaps between Africa and the rest of the world and between countries in Africa has been disappointing slow. Therefore, accelerating the pace of progress and bringing the gaps must be the first order priority for Africa. Africa's youthful population, estimated at nearly 420 million under the age of 25, requires that we invest significant resources in education. Moreover, we are just 5 years away from the SDGs deadline, and we have Agenda 2063 in focus. Thus, Africa is in a race for its economic fate and future. It is a race against time, a race we must win. Even before Africa increases its speed in the race, the continent faces a dual and present challenge: insufficient domestic funding and a sharp decline in external assistance. The Global Education Monitoring Report reveals that African nations spend on average 4.6% of GDP on public education. Although this expenditure is within the global threshold of 4 to 6% of GDP, the truth is that it is insufficient to unlock the full economic potential of the continent. More worryingly, the breakdown of the educational spending exposes critical systemic imbalances. It shows that primary education accounts for roughly 2% of GDP, and that is about 44% of total education spending. Secondary education absorbs 1.5%, and tertiary education accounts for 1.1%, despite its high per-student cost. On rather alarming note, it has been revealed that investment in pre-primary education is almost negligible, averaging only 0.1% of GDP. This is by UNICEF. UNICEF confirms this and suggests that many African countries allocate less than 2% of their education budgets to early childhood education. This chronic underinvestment at the foundation of learning is at the source of doom loop. It weakens cognitive development, limits future academic achievements, and perpetuates cycles of inequity that erode human capital formation and long-term economic growth. This is the point in time where Africa needs more investment in education. Yet, it is the same time where Africa is contending with the withdrawal of support from long-standing and traditional development partners in the sector. Alongside the recent instant termination of external development funding, which threatened the continuity of initiatives in African countries, there has been a gradual reduction of development assistance from traditional partners. In fact, the share of development aid coming to Africa reached its lowest point in 2023 since the year 2000. At the same time, even borrowing from capital markets is now more expensive than it was in 2010. There is a strong squeeze on resources as the needs on the continent are expanding. Ladies and gentlemen, this financial crisis cannot make us surrender. It must awaken each one of us on this continent to tough reality of geopolitical cooperations. It underscores the need for bold and strategic leadership to reimagine education financing. It requires placing our money where our future is, and that is education. As African policymakers, we must strengthen domestic resource mobilization, broaden the tax base through digitization, and prioritize education as an economic investment to reap Africa's continent's demographic dividend. The time has come for Africa to take ownership of its educational destiny, transforming adversity into opportunity and building resilient financing systems that will secure learning for generations to come. Distinguished guests, here in Ghana and under the leadership of His Excellency President Mahama, we have fundamentally shifted our paradigm, treating education not as a social expense, but as the paramount strategic investment in our nation's future. This conviction is reflected in the unprecedented priority given to the sector, which this year received the largest nominal allocation in our history. To secure the future of our children, we have prioritized foundational learning and placed SHS and TVET programs on an unshakable financial foundation. Our strategy is both comprehensive and targeted. We have increased the budget for school feeding program by 33% and raised the capitation grant by a record 73% to dismantle financial barriers at the basic education level. We are supplying free menstrual pads to young girls to bridge the gender gap in education and address period poverty. We are aggressively tackling education infrastructure deficits by resourcing core institutions to provide infrastructure to close critical gaps at all levels of education. This year, we allocated 564.6 million Ghana cedis for comprehensive provision of curricular-based textbooks covering 4 sets of KG books, kindergarten books, 4 sets of primary textbooks for 800 learners, and 9 sets of JHS textbooks for 540,000 learners. And in 2026 budget, we are allocating even more for these curricular-based textbooks. Furthermore, we are strategically pivoting towards skills and tertiary education, expanding our TVET voucher programs, and eliminating academic fees for all first-year tertiary students. This comprehensive domestically financed blueprint is our sovereign response to a shifting global financial landscape, a decisive move to build a resilient, skilled, and competitive citizenry funded by ourselves for our own future. In this era of rapid digital transformation, our commitment is to leverage technology as a powerful tool for fiscal discipline and educational impact. Furthermore, we are actively fostering a new ecosystem of collaboration, moving from aid to strategic investment. This is evident by our partnership with the private sector through the Ghana TVET Voucher Project, which equips mastercraft persons and apprentices with market-relevant skills, and our international collaborations to establish new public universities. These are not isolated projects. They are a deliberate strategy to pool resources, share expertise, and build a culture of shared responsibility for education, the next generation of Africans. Nevertheless, sustainable education financing cannot be achieved by any nation in isolation. This movement demands a collective continental response, one that reflects our shared determination to transform Africa's future through education. I therefore call upon my fellow African policymakers and our partners to embrace a new covenant of shared responsibility. We, as African leaders, must lead this charge by prioritizing education in our national budgets, not as a residual cost, but as a foundational investment in our demographic dividend. We must strengthen domestic resource mobilization by broadening our tax bases through digitalization and by combating illicit financial flows, ensuring that more of Africa's wealth is retained and invested in Africa's future. At the same time, we must explore diversified funding sources beyond traditional government budgets, engaging the private sector, encouraging strategic partnerships, and leveraging technology can unlock new avenues for investment in our educational system. Public and private collaborations can foster sustainable funding streams that are responsive to the evolving needs of our communities. We must also prioritize the efficient use of resources. Ensuring transparency, fighting corruption, and adopting innovative financial management practices will maximize the impact of every cedi, naira, or whatever the currency is spent on education. We owe it to our citizens, our taxpayers, and our future generations to be prudent and accountable towards our vital resource utilization. Equally important is the need for targeted investments that promote equity and inclusion. Marginalized groups, girls, and children in remote and underserved areas must not be left out. Innovative financing mechanisms, such as resource-based financing and education bonds, can help extend educational opportunities to those who need them most. Furthermore, the rise of digital technology presents a unique opportunity to strengthen education financing. Integrating digital payments and data-driven approaches has the potential to enhance transparency, strengthen accountability, and widen access to educational funding. Through digital innovation, we can ensure that every contribution, no matter how small, reaches its intended purpose efficiently and effectively. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I extend a sincere call for transformation to our development and private sector partners. Let us move from donor-led intervention to strategic co-investment. Let us align capital, expertise, and innovation with our homegrown priorities, from STEM education and digital infrastructure to technical and vocational training, so that our investments directly empower the next generation of African thinkers, innovators, and leaders. In reimagining education financing in Africa, we are doing more than fulfilling a right. We are building the economic engine for the continent we desire. Let this triennial be remembered as the turning point when we moved from words to action, when we chose to invest in ourselves, believe in our own potential, and secure a prosperous and inclusive future for every African child. This is the cry of the African child, to have the opportunity to manifest its prosperous destiny. May long live Africa, may long live Ghana, may long live Adia. Thank you.